When we first started to learn to scuba dive, we learned all about the equipment that we use to go diving with. And an important piece of equipment that we have is our scuba cylinder. And we're taught about the different types of scuba cylinders, the different type of valves, and things like that. One of the things that we also talk about a lot is the inspections that are needed for the scuba cylinder. And there's two types of inspections that we talk about. Obviously, there's the hydrostatic test, which is mandated by the United States Department of Transportation. And that's a 5-year test that has to be conducted on all compressed air cylinders. But there's also another inspection that we talk about, and that's called the visual inspection. And there's a question about, well, where did it come from, and is it mandatory? And the fact is that the visual inspection is a scuba diving industry standard, not a government standard. And we all adhere to that and make sure that our cylinders are visually inspected every year. Otherwise, we don't fill the tank. So where did that really come from? And I did a little research on this and found that it really became a standard coming out of a study that was done by a group called the National Underwater Accident Data Center. And it's an organization or a facility that was started by a gentleman from the University of Rhode Island, John J. McAniff, in 1970. And they commissioned a study at the University of Rhode Island for inspections of scuba cylinders. And the actual report, which you can find online, is called the Scuba Safety Report Series Report Number 1, and it's conducted by the Department of Ocean Engineering at the University of Rhode Island, and it's on the corrosive study of steel scuba cylinders. So if you read that report, it goes into the idea around, well, why are scuba cylinders different than regular compressed air cylinders? And essentially, it's because of the environment that the tanks are in, with the water and the salt conditions that could impact the cylinders. And the study goes in and it talks about how they did subject some brand new tanks to the environment, and after 100 days of corrosion tests, the tanks were severely corroded and probably would not have passed a cylinder fill and could have potentially exploded. So their recommendations were that scuba tanks be subjected to a yearly inspection. Now, the report also talks about a program that had been implemented by the National Association of Skin Diving Stores, and that was called their VIP program, or Visual Inspection Protection Program. And it was kind of interesting because they talked about for $1.50, you could take your tank into any of these stores where they would actually open it up, look inside, and inspect it, and then put a sticker on it. So that's kind of originated with the dive stores back before the study, and then really became something of a standard after the study. Now, there's also an organization that we at Scuba Shack utilize for our inspection training. That's PSI, PCI, or Professional Scuba Inspectors, or Professional Cylinder Inspectors. And our technicians need to be trained by PSI, PCI, and then have a recurring training every 3 years. And a really interesting article in the latest Dive News Wire from 8/26, where PSI, PCI Incorporated was warning of misleading advertising for somebody trying to confuse people about their training versus PSI, PCI. And you know, these guys at PSI, PCI wrote the book on inspection. Bill High and Mark Grisham. They wrote the book, and we're pretty proud to be a part of that environment for our cylinders inspections to keep people safe. So if you're interested, you can go out there and look online at the report. It's fascinating. They recommended that it become a law way back in 1970, but I guess we can still wait on Washington to pass certain types of laws.